Welcome to part 1 of a 2-part series entitled Enlightened Sufi Master Nasruddin, Vegan, the Wise Fool with True Knowledge of God. Mullah Nasruddin is known as the wise fool of Middle Eastern folklore and is often portrayed as an old man in a turban riding backwards on his donkey-person companion. One folklore tells how the town where Mullah Nasruddin lived was buzzing with the news that he had lost his donkey-person friend. When Mullah Nasruddin's neighbors went to his house to see if they could help, they were surprised to see he was not upset. Rather, he was joyously expressing gratitude to God. They asked him,
"Mullah, aren't you sad about losing your donkey person?"
Mullah Nasruddin laughed and said,
"I am happier because God helped me in that. I was not riding the donkey person. Otherwise, I would be lost as well."
A whole corpus of Mullah Nasruddin's jokes, thousands of them, exist today. Funny, witty, and educational, these stories have spread all over the world. This explains the many different ways of spelling his name, such as Nasruddin, Nasruddin, which means victory of the faith, and the different titles associated with his name, such as Hoja, Hoka, Mullah, Molla, and Effendi, all meaning teacher or master. Over the centuries, many stories have been added, modified, and translated into different languages. But today, we will reflect on the real life of the enlightened Sufi master Nasruddin. He is said to have been born in Hortu, Turkey in 1208, the son of an imam. In 1237, he moved to Aksehir, Turkey, to study under reputable scholars of the time. He then became a great Sufi practitioner and teacher. According to Professor Mikhail Bayram, who has conducted extensive research on Mullah Nasruddin, his full name was Nasir-ud-Din Mahmud al-Kioui, and his title was Ahi Evran, the leader of the Ahi Brotherhood. He was educated in Khorasan and became the pupil of the Quran Mufassir Fakir al-Din al-Razi in Herat. In the second half of the 11th century, Turkish people began to settle in Anatolia, and likewise in the early 13th century, people from Khorasan fled to Anatolia. Some newcomers were settled in Seljuk cities by the Seljuk government. Mullah Nasruddin, then known as Ahi Evran, a Muslim Bektashi preacher, came to Anatolia to spread Islamic Sufism. He worked in Kayseri and began organizing the Muslim craftsmen in the cities. He was regarded as the sage, philosopher, and leader of 32 craft and trade types, and the organization was named Ahi Order. Ahi in the Arabic language means brother. The Ahi order gathered merchant and craft masters from Anatolia to Central Asia under the same roof and provided them with any kind of support they needed. Thus, the Ahi order was a brotherhood that combined artisanship, trade, and profession with maturity, morality, and truth. To be called Ahi, one had to be an artisan, merchant, or merchant owner who was charitable, honest, and discreet in his work and behavior. Occasionally, Mullah Nasruddin served as Qadi, a Muslim judge, and there are many stories and jokes about how he would address judicial and religious problems. Our most beloved Supreme Master Qinghai recounted another anecdote about Mullah Nasruddin during a lecture in 1997.
Like one day, he went to a shop. A shopkeeper sell a pair of swords, very expensive, 50 gold pieces for a pair. And Mullah just looked at it and said, "Oh, what is this? Why so expensive? It's only made of a piece of iron, at the most. Why is this 50 pieces of gold in the old time? It's very expensive." So the owner of the shop said, "Oh, Mullah, you don't know. This sword is magical sword. When you go out and fight, they extend longer, invisibly, and reach the enemy and kill him." So the master didn't say anything. He went home. And he brought out a pair of fire tongue, that you use to pick up the hot coal from the fireplace. Okay, they call it fire tongue, right? Okay, he brought them to the shop owner, a pair of fire tongue, and said, "Here, sell this for 100 gold pieces." And the shop owner of the sword shop owner said, "Why, Mullah? This is just an ordinary fire tongue. Why 100 gold piece. And the mullah said, you don't know. This might look ordinary to you, but when my wife throw it at me, it can extend across the room of 50 yards. And reach me without fail anytime.
Mullah Nasruddin's tales may be understood at many levels. First, there is the obvious joke, then the moral lesson behind the joke. But Mullah Nasruddin's tales may also be understood at many spiritual depths. The tales bring the spiritual seeker a little further on the path of enlightenment every time they are read, studied, or contemplated. In the East, the original tales are solely used by initiate Sufis, with the pure longing of attaining God realization. On one occasion, a neighbor found Mullah Nasruddin down on his knees looking for something.
What, have you lost, Mullah?
Mullah Nasruddin replied.
My key.
After a few minutes of searching, the neighbor asked,
Where did you drop it?
At home.
Then why, for heaven's sake, are you looking here?
There is more light here than inside my house.
In 2008, Supreme Master Ching Hai told us this story.
There was a story about Nasruddin, the funny saint of the Sufis. One time he was with the king in the royal court, and the king asked him, if you have to choose between money and virtue, what would you choose, Nasruddin? Nasruddin said, I choose money, Your Majesty. So the king said, oh, I'm very, very disappointed with you. Because everybody would have chosen virtues. Everybody would know that virtue is the best for you. And you, of all the people, choose money? He was very indignant. So Nasruddin asked the king, and you, Your Majesty, what would you choose? The king said, of course I choose virtue. So Nasruddin said, that's correct, Your Majesty. We all choose what we don't have. Nasruddin is very poor, everybody knows. He has only one donkey person, and sometimes the donkey person doesn't even work because he has nothing to eat. So the donkey person sometimes went on strike, even. So I couldn't even afford a camel person or a horse person. I would make fun of him because he ride around on a donkey person. So, of course, he's poor, no? So he needs money. So if he has to choose between a virtue, which he has plenty of already, and he chooses money, no? The king has a lot of money already. Of course he chooses this virtue. He could afford to say that. I like that joke so much that I keep telling everybody I know.
One of the most famous tales about Mullah Nasruddin's comments on how people tend to seek enlightenment in all the wrong places. They know where the key to enlightenment is, but they prefer to look elsewhere. Master Nasruddin used to travel with a donkey person across the frontier every day, with the panniers loaded with straw. Since he admitted to being a smuggler when he trudged home every night, the frontier guards searched him again and again. They sifted the straw, steeped it in water, even burned it from time to time. Meanwhile, Mullah Nasruddin was becoming visibly more and more prosperous. When he retired, he went to live in another country, where one of the customs officers met him years later.
You can tell me now, Nasruddin, whatever was it that you were smuggling when we could never catch you?
Donkey people.
This tale illuminates how humanity is trapped in rigid thinking patterns. Such ignorance has led humankind to believe that something esoteric must be distant and complicated, when in fact the mystical goal is much closer than is realized.
We all want to contribute to peace and happiness, so be vegan. Make peace, do good deeds.
Delightful viewers, it's been a pleasure to have you with us today. Join us again on Sunday, July 3rd for part 2 of Enlightened Sufi Master Nasruddin, Vegan, the Wise Fool with True Knowledge of God.